we're at a stage where I think it's the first time ever where we haven't seen so much institutional and even corporate um, adoption of blockchain technology, right? And
Yep.
not permissioned blockchain technology, actual public blockchain technology, right?
This episode of Untold Stories is sponsored by BingX and Angel Block. You'll hear more about them later on in this episode. All right, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Actually, to my guest, it's good evening, but it's good morning for me. I am your host, Charlie Shrem, and you're joining me for another epic episode of Untold Stories, where together we get to dive deep with some of crypto's most influential leaders to truly understand how this movement came to be. So I'm joined by an awesome guest today who actually we've met in real life before, and he's going to tell the story. Ahmed Al-Balaghi, thank you so much for coming on Untold Stories. So you're also the founder of your own podcast called the Encrypted Podcast. It's one of the Middle East and North Africa's largest podcasts dedicated to blockchain and crypto assets. You're coming to us from Dubai, which is where a lot of my friends actually moved to over the last few years. One of my friends, we had him on the podcast, uh, 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 Gabby Abed. He actually became the ambassador for Barbados to United Arab Emirates. A crypto friend, like became it's crazy. It's crazy how
Yeah.
10 years later or 15 years later, this whole industry is changing. But you're the founder of Biconomy, which has become such a core infrastructure piece of our industry that really most people don't even understand why they need you, or that they're probably using you guys if they're probably doing something, anything from playing Zed Run or depositing something into a DeFi contract or whatever. Um, you guys, interactions with with decentralized applications are not seamless. They require like gas fees, usage fees, things like that. And then sometimes like people don't want to deposit, don't want to spend their ether if they're sending from one token to another. And we actually looked at that. I remember going back in the early days of Ethereum, I thought that was going to be Ethereum's downfall, was when they were talking about tokens. I was like, yeah, but then you have to own Ethereum too at the same time when you're spending these tokens, and it's too much of like an uphill battle. So first, welcome to the show. Uh, Talk about like how you're changing that, and tell us a cool untold story.
Cool, awesome. Well, before we get into all of that detail, I one untold story for sure. Is definitely like we definitely did meet in East San Francisco, which was I think in 2019. And it was Gabriel Abed.
Oh, there you
Basically,
go.
he actually introduced us on WhatsApp, and he said, "Oh, you should meet Charlie in San Francisco if you're there." We met for like 2 seconds. You're like, who's this guy? I'm a bit busy. But no, I mean, you were, I think you were very busy that week. I remember.
I remember
And
that trip. I remember. Yeah, I remember. It's all coming back to me now. Well, it's good
yeah,
to meet you
yeah,
again.
because I remember you were just flying down there and you were there for like a couple of days or something, as it was. And yeah, you mentioned Gabriel, who's now the ambassador for Barbados to the UAE. And I was with him actually a couple of weeks ago in Abu Dhabi, where he currently resides. So it's just crazy how we're both in that alpha group, right? He's good friend of ours as well, and how sort of like it kind of all circles back, right, to people in crypto doing like legitimate things. They always will somehow get connected. If not in 2019, they'll get connected like a couple of years later. Like so
I love it.
it's amazing how things always circle back.
It's still a small world.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And especially when I came into this space, I was in I came to this space in 2016, and a lot of like just going into understanding Bitcoin and like looking at all the like cool things that have been happening. Of course, your name has come across like quite a lot, so I'm also very honored to be on this podcast. I'm not sure. I'm sure like a lot of other guests as well sort of say the same thing when they really look back at the history
I'm
of the
honored to have
space.
you.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know, but I used to be based in Shanghai. or at least in the early days around 2016. I don't know if you were there, but all this sort of like ancient Bitcoin and Ethereum sort of like let's the sort of the Bitcoin fork or the Ethereum DAO, you know, all of the craziness was happening in China. I don't know if you were there, but I'm sure you'd remember it very well.
Those the early China Bitcoin years were crazy. I mean, those so many companies came out, uh, and you saw a huge, but you saw also a huge. A lot of people left. A lot of people left
Yeah,
China. They left Hong Kong. They left those places where a lot of the early Bitcoin and crypto companies came out of. Uh,
yeah, exactly,
it's
exactly.
a little bit sad, but it's everyone moves around, and it's like communities move, and it's pretty cool to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. And do you know what's funny is that, lots of people are coming to crypto, during like for NFTs or DeFi or any other reason, which is great. But it's just, whenever I meet someone who's like really OG and they've seen that sort of like China, they saw all early things that happened in China, right? It's like, it's just so amazing to see that rapport, all the old memories as well, because not many people have seen that side. Which is a funny one as well at the
It's
same
funny
time.
because I remember like very specific moments when
Yeah,
China
yeah,
like banned Bitcoin or whatever, and there
yeah,
was like 2013, 2019, probably a few times sprinkled in, but there were always like these. I remember one time I was like in an Embassy Suites hotel in I don't know what city I was in. I remember just picking up my phone, about to go out
yeah,
for dinner, and I looked at my phone. It was like China's banning Bitcoin, and I'm like,
yeah,
again. It just,
yeah,
I think that kicked off a bear market for like a year. I forget which one, but it was just like so many of my personal life moments are stamped in my brain, intertwined with Bitcoin or crypto moments. So I
yeah,
remember,
100%.
like sitting in a car on my way to when I, gotten out of prison, and I was working at this restaurant, and I was working, I was like only 3 months out, and I didn't even have a smartphone yet, and I was a dishwasher. And I remember just driving on the road, and the guy who was driving me to work, who I didn't even know very well yet, he had the radio on, and it was like, da da da, smart computing platform Ethereum has been hacked, and something called the DAO, $162 million have been stolen. And I'm like,
Yeah,
what the fuck is this thing? Ethereum has been hacked. I haven't heard the word Ethereum since Vitalik was on stage talking about it in 2014. Now it's been hacked already.
yeah,
And it was just
yeah,
all these little moments. It's so funny.
yeah. No, no, exactly. And like fast forward to where we are now, right? So it's pretty cool. I'm sorry, guys. I know we're kind of going down memory lane, but
That's
it's
what they
it's all
love.
yeah. Cool. So yeah, I mean, like, just I guess a quick like general introduction. Yeah, I've been in crypto for the past 6 years. Started off when I was in Shanghai. I was studying Mandarin, just because it was like there was a great scholarship opportunity from the Chinese government to actually go and study Chinese, which I thought, why not? Um, Stumbled into Bitcoin and Ethereum then, and like it's just haven't looked back since then, really, right? I now reside in the UAE, and I'm, yeah, like you said, I'm one of the co-founders at Biconomy, and everything that we do really is all about how can we make crypto more accessible, how can we make it very easy to use, and we've been working with um, a variety of applications. So right now we've relayed over 23 million gasless transactions for over 200 applications who've used our APIs, where they basically subsidize the gas fees for their end users. And we've also facilitated over $260 million of like cross-chain volume via our other product, which allows for seamless cross-chain transfers. And so really what we're building is a suite of tools that developers could use within their app to easily make a customizable transaction journey for their end users, and just to make just transactions just as like they are in Web 2. So that's a very very high level of.
How did you go from like being just a crypto entrepreneur into like now it's like you have a full-time job now and you're running this company and everything. A lot of people almost are nervous to do it twice.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I would look. I would say there is to some degree like there are a couple of factors, right? So I've when I started off in China, I was sort of very lucky to be exposed very early and to understand sort of like just understanding the market and sort of really navigate the market, understand who's who, how do you differentiate like a scammy project or even a scammy conference from a good one. Like all of these things just help shape you like how you view the market. Um, and I was also, fortunate to have traveled as well through this company I used to work with called the Metaverse. Funny enough,
Yeah.
they were a bit ahead of their time. And I moved to actually a VC in Dubai called Jabbar Internet Group, where they were really looking at crypto and security tokens back a couple of years ago. And it was then when, during that time, I was actually advising a project. They were very small, no one knew them. They were called Matic, which is now Polygon. Um,
Yeah. It's still
no one,
Matic on some,
it's
coin
still
market
Matic,
cap
yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, no. So I think that the token is still called Matic, but it's very funny because like when I saw them along my co-founder, we just thought like this is great. There's a project that is actually trying to do something, and they have a demo, whereas everyone was doing an ICO like pre-product, right? Um, and so through that, through sort of helping out the Polygon team early on, and we were very fortunate that they also helped us when we started as well at Biconomy. Me and my co-founder Eniket, we got to know each other in China, and then it was through sort of an introduction from one of the founding, or from Sandeep, one of the founders of Matic, to introduce us to our CTO Sachin. And so what happened there was a great osmosis between us three, where we were just like hacking on stuff right on the side, right? Sachin is a Web2, developer. He wanted to get into Web3 during the bear market, and me and Anika just helped him through that journey. And we were just building stuff on the side. We built nodes initially, thinking about security, and then before we knew it, we like thought about, okay, how about we just solve UX for this space, because right now it's very broken. So it was more like a very slow transition. I had like this sort of day job, running a podcast also as well during that time. To then, I loved working with Sachin and Nikat as my co-founders, and I thought, why not, like what we're building, makes sense, and it's something that I sort of wanted to do full time. And yeah, made that leap of faith. I would also say there's one really important thing as well that doesn't really get talked about, and it's like an unfair advantage. I also had an unfair advantage as well, which is and again, not many people have, but I think it's important to talk about is, if I fail, the end, like my plan Z is basically, I could go back to London, and like stay in my parents' home. I have a bedroom for me, right? Again, not many people
I don't
have.
want to go back to my parents' basement ever again.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We it's not basement. I have like a dedicated bedroom, right?
Okay,
But for
I
me, it
have
was
a
like,
bedroom in a
there,
basement.
yeah, there is that safety net, right? And so the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what, I have this safety net. There
Yeah,
is, it's not going to be the end of the world, right? But again, I'm very lucky to have that, right?
of
And I'm
course.
sure, and again, like I think there are so many, like, I'm again still a struggling founder, right? Where we're still trying to like do a lot. There's still so many things on our roadmap and lots of things that we need to do before we could achieve the things that we need to achieve. But that was also a very strong factor in making that decision, right? To going back to your question of, okay, like making this leap of faith
I
of
see what you mean.
being
Yeah,
active
there's
in this.
knowing that there's going to be some sort of safety net, as bad as
Yeah,
that safety net is, but you won't be on the street, definitely helps.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
want to propel yourself to new highs and take risks because there's a little bit less of an issue if you fail. Not that we want that to happen or anything, but that's a
yeah,
really good point to make. And I think that definitely is a positive and a negative, because on the other side, someone who grows up with nothing can use it as a positive springboard, but also can have like a chip on their shoulder if they, have a family and lost it or something. It could any situation can be positive or negative.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
do you guys
Yeah.
only service Ethereum?
So we service over eight different EVM chains. So right now it's mainly EVM. We also work. We are looking to work with other chains as well. It's just really a question of bandwidth. So yeah, so it's mainly EVM chains.
Guys, hot off the press, we've just negotiated with our epic new sponsor, Bing X, over $155 in free new user rewards for each of you. Just check them out and click the link below, and I'll explain to you who these guys are and why they're offering such an amazing award to our Untold Stories listeners. Bing X is a really cool crypto social trading exchange. They offer the usual like futures, spot, derivatives, all the good stuff that you guys like to do, all the cryptos and all the different coins that you want to buy. But they also offer a really cool copy trading service, and then you can see all their traders over the past few years, how they've performed, and you can simply copy their trading. They have over 3 million users, regulatory licenses in Canada, USA, over in Europe, through Lithuania, Australia. They got one of the best ratings by CertiK, so they're legitimate, and they're going to be helping us out and offering you guys this amazing deal. Listen, if you click the link below, there's a new user reward and an extra on top special link bonus. You're going to get $155 in USDT. The link has everything in there, and they're even capping your losses up to $10 if you go in there and try to play around with the copy trading. BingX.com, thank you guys so much for sponsoring us. I'm excited to send some more videos and update you guys on their platform. It really looks nice. It's comfortable to use. You feel safe and secure. You get $150, $155 for free, so why not? Go check it out, BingX. Thank you guys. When we mean by EVM chains, it's Ethereum, Polygon, Cosmos. I'm just toward
Yeah, so
complete
Ethereum.
blockchains.
Yeah, so Ethereum, Polygon, most of the L2s like Optimism, Arbitrum, BSC as well for sure. So yeah, these are the main
Is
ones.
Solana on that list?
Solana we don't support because it's not EVM, and it's right now. Of course, it requires like a different type of like at least development and skills from our team, which we can do. It's just more of a fact that this needs more time
Yeah, of
to
course.
actually be on. Yeah.
I'm looking at a chart my analysts at Investor Place sent me. It's daily active addresses in millions across blockchains. Now, I don't like the daily active addresses because some blockchains optimize to like have omnibus or like addresses that facilitate smart contracts that facilitate transactions as opposed to like one address to another, but it's still a decent metric. And it shows the top five is as Binance Smart Chain. Actually, it's just called Smart Chain now. Solana, Ethereum, Polygon, and Avalanche. And then it goes Arbitrum, Flow, Osmosis, Cosmos, Optimism, and Near. Do you agree? Do you agree with this chart?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have some questions over the stats of Binance
Yeah,
Smart Chain,
same.
but I mean, look, they are the largest exchange. They have, I don't know how many, God knows how many users they have, right? And to convert those to actually use their chain, would be, a good percentage. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised there. Also, at the same time, given the bridging product that we have, funnily enough, like the third most active chain that we have is Binance, is the BNB chain, right? So
Why
it
is
is
that?
because I do believe that they have a strong brand. It is, of course, it's cheap to also use their tech as well. Lots of people like to have different types of opportunities, moving from one chain to another, and Binance provides those opportunities to these end users. So I'm also surprised as well, sort of
Do you
seeing that.
think Binance Smart
they-
Chain will be like the chain of highways where people go from one if you want to go from one chain to the other, you have to cross through BSC?
Interesting. Um, I mean, I would have a different view to this
Tell me.
because
I'm spitballing here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I mean, potentially, like there, like if you think about it, there is a possibility for why could that be the case? Because of course you could move your funds to BNB very easily, right? So from Binance to BNB, but um, there are all these different bridges out there. There are a huge number of them, and the competition is getting really fierce in the sense of you could really go easily from one chain to another right now, right? With all the tech that it currently exists, and so I really do feel like it. The savvy Web3 end user would be able to just decide like where they want to go, how they want to go about it, right? Um, and basically, like if they do want to be on a specific chain, that's just their preference on like what chain they like, as opposed to a chain, being the core router, right? If that makes sense.
No, it completely makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we had all these chains that launched to like compete and do the same thing. And I think just based on like physics, maybe we'll see them like kind of branch out and try to do specific things a little bit better than each other.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, look, we are seeing a great deal of innovation, right, across these different ecosystems. Some of them are actual tech innovations, others are way more ecosystem plays and BD plays, and those are totally fine, right? Like it's not necessary that the best tech always wins, right?
Yeah.
um,
Interesting point.
so yeah, and I
Yeah, I
think that
remember
that's always going to be the case.
there were some blockchains launched way back when that launched with like big fanfare and billions of dollars. That was like bad tech that ended up being successful for a while just because of that
Yeah,
whole situation. Um, I,
exactly.
I
So
did.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like it's basically repeating the old like Web 2 playbook as well, right? Like, and there are countless examples in just Web 2, or even before like the internet existed, where you had maybe better technologies, but the market preferred the other just because of how
Yeah,
solid
good
they were.
point. I did a podcast a few weeks ago, and I was talking to the guests about whether if yield is crypto's killer app because uh, the ability to like find those uh, illiquid sources of capital and then be able to bring that yield to like crypto holders um, is what arguably led to like the huge explosion in CFI and DeFi. And so I guess my question is across the Biconomy networks, do you think that users are still like going after these uh, uh, trading fees and maker fees and different type of like yield farming and um, being able to participate in liquidity pools, provide yield for like different type of maybe securities tokens eventually?
Yeah, really good question. We're actually seeing quite the opposite. A lot of the sort of like gasless transactions and all of that is happening more so on the gaming side, the NFT side, and more generally the metaverse space.
Interesting.
The more we've sort of looked into it, and if you just look at user profiles and behaviors, those people who understand the concept of just yields and how they work in DeFi, providing liquidity and all that jazz, right? They tend to be more of, the technical folks who actually understand, what's happening, right? And that basically means they might even understand the concept of gas more, right? So the bucket of those folks who might have, let's say, more capital to spare wouldn't probably care much about gas fees, and they see that just as a cost of, in a way,
Interesting.
doing business on chain. And you really think about from that lens, it makes so much sense because even the traditional sort of like finance world, like not no one of your average Joes would come in and actually understand just interest rates alone, let alone all these complex stuff that's happening in DeFi, right?
It's so true.
Yeah. So, and this is why I think NFTs and gaming is always going to bring way more people in than DeFi ever will, right? Just because of the fact that DeFi is very complex. Now, we could probably see way more capital being brought in by DeFi just because there's fewer people, but they just have a ton more, like they have just a huge amount of wealth, or they're
Yes.
whales, or they might be institutions that want to do these complex things. But I don't see the average person doing it. They might do it via an application or a fintech that's basically creating a great front end for DeFi. But that's pretty much it, right? It's either going to be one end, super easy, super simple on a front end level, or to the other extreme where it's, if you know your, I don't know if I could, yeah. Anyways,
No,
if
I
you know your,
love I
yeah,
I love
yeah,
how your answer was exactly the opposite of what I thought you were gonna say.
okay, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you one other thing, right? I cannot name the name, but we are working with a very big global bank, um, which is using Biconomy's APIs, and it's a full-on DeFi solution, which will be announced very, very soon. And like, again, it's gonna be like two parties, like it's gonna be like two major banks, I think, in
Well,
this transactional scenario. But
uh,
again, there will be like millions, let's say, being flowed there. Um,
yeah, it's a
so
perfect example. I was being pitched a company yesterday as part of our fund, and they were explaining they want to be like a bank that does crypto services. And one of the things was it was going to be depositing and withdrawing and depositing is going to be gasless. And I
cool.
said, how will that work if someone is holding a token in their wallet? How are you going to pay for their gas fee? And they didn't have an answer actually, but now I have an answer.
Cool. Yeah, great. No, that's great too. And yeah, and one big thing as well is like, even when it comes to, let's say, just institutions in general, them holding crypto either is a accounting nightmare, or their regulators won't allow as well. And so there is a need for that type of abstraction, at that level too. So even being that go-to partner for their public blockchain work is such a critical thing that is needed for at least these types of institutions. Um, that that may know blockchain, that actually have the right developers to understand everything that's needed, but they can't really,
Sure.
do everything, to get them to the final goal they need to be.
So if you're out there, so then the opposite question, then if you're out there and you are a game developer, you are a gaming studio, you work for a big one, even as big as like you know the largest gaming company in the world, Rockstar Games, that's developing the much anticipated Grand Theft Auto 6 eventually. Are
Oh yeah,
they? Is everyone now in that world thinking about how to incorporate this Web3 technology into their gaming infrastructure?
100%. I can't speak for Grand Theft Auto because, I mean, yeah, they're a different company. We're not speaking to them, but there are some, game publishers, or other traditional, companies that have all that sort of experience, are very much looking into Web3, right? Like, this is happening.
So cool.
Um, we're even speaking to this games publisher that has 45 million monthly active users, and already they have a white paper and have thought about a token, right? To that degree. Um, so it's really cool to see that. One worrying thing that we're kind of seeing in this space is that there is a big propensity for these, types of companies to go for custodial wallet solutions, right? Now, for us, we don't really care if it's custodial, if it's non-custodial, it doesn't really matter. But just from a security point of view, like, if you look at both extreme ends,
What do you mean?
they're taking that one extreme side, which is like, you know, it's custodial, it's fine. We'll just whip up a public private key pair for each end user because it's easy. They just log in, via MetaMask or whatever. Sorry, they log in via a social login. They don't need MetaMask or any of that stuff. But it's the company that owns the private key at the end of the day, right? Um, so, so it's like that in a way. I get why they're doing that, but at the same time, it doesn't really buy super well, at least from the sense of a security standpoint, right? Like, what's the difference between that and your current game, which you could,
Yeah,
if you
good
wanted
point.
to remove an item from an end user, then you could still do it within this, um,
So why
you know,
are
with
they incorporating? What are they doing? What's exciting them the most? Is it the ability to have value added skins and characters and avatars that can be transferred from game to game because it's sitting on a blockchain now?
yeah, that would, so if you're a games publisher and you have many different types of games, that is a really big advantage, right? That's something they could easily come in and do. Um, and then there is a concept of actually adding more value to to these types of like the fact that there could be a sort of a marketplace, or there could be value added to a token, that could even drive more, different types of engagement at the game level as well. So it's basically like they could easily adopt, the Web 2 sort of mindset of how they, work with, how they create games with their current user base, but using Web 3 as a way to like see what else is possible. Um, and yeah, I mean that's what we're currently seeing, at least.
What are our shortcomings now then? Are we ready for the next bull market?
Good question. It's funny because we're at a stage where I think it's the first time ever where we haven't seen so much institutional and even corporate um, adoption of blockchain technology, right? And
Yep.
not permissioned blockchain technology, actual public blockchain technology, right? We've never seen this amount, before, and I think what we've seen before in terms of bull markets will be nothing compared to what we'll probably see in the next couple of years. Um, I still think we're too early. The market is still not as mature because we still need to get rid of some players, right? Like, people who are just coming in for, the quick buck, but also a lot of infrastructure needs to be built out, right? It kind of goes back to that example that I heard one investor use before. I can't remember the name, but I always talk about it, which is the airport versus the airport infrastructure versus airplane, right? If you think about it, like, airplanes came first, but before they were able to be used for, worldwide use, you needed the infrastructure, right? But there was over the years, it was this balancing act, right, where one came first and the other had to go after, and then the other one, went another step ahead. So I feel like the same is holding true for like Web 3 use cases and DApps versus the infrastructure that supports them.
Hey guys, I want to take a second and talk to you about our newest sponsor, angelblock.io. It's about that time in the bear market that we actually have to take a look at which projects have taken the do's and the don'ts from all the previous waves, bull and bear markets that we've had, and build out real decentralized projects that are going to be successful and take this blockchain and crypto world out we're into the next level. Traditional fundraising is very clunky, and traditional investing in crypto is very clunky as well. I know, I'm a VC at Druid Ventures. AngelBlock is really, really cool, and it's a new DeFi protocol that's solving not only the issues of fundraising for digital assets, but more compliance, transparency, real decentralization. They have on-chain governance, staking, lending, secondary marketplaces for the trading of tokens, all these different ways that you can actually interact with the startup and the token and the project that you're actually investing in. There's a whole community here. AngelBlock is that new compliant platform that's safe and easy to use in order to weed out all the scams. It's so cool. It's built on top of Ethereum, but it's multi-chain by design. They'll also be involved in the mentoring process. There's a phenomenal community that AngelBlock has built. It doesn't cost anything. Go check out the community. Go to their website, angelblock.io. Sign up to their email to stay up to date. You'll have a chance to win some really cool AngelBlock NFTs. And this is only for Untold Stories listeners. Thank you, guys. I think it's a very good point. I like that airport analogy. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, it's not really mine. I kind of stole it from someone else. Yeah. That's how I always think of it. So I mean, I still think we're in the building the infrastructure, airport infrastructure phase
Yeah.
before these planes could take off.
So having transactions be gasless where the gas is potentially paid by another person was definitely like a key hurdle to for continued mass adoption. Um, well, another big hurdle is, and I don't know the answer to this, how are things priced in the metaverse? Is everything just priced in dollars and then there's like an exchange rate at some point in time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it really depends from one metaverse to another, one platform to another. I was literally just speaking to a gaming like think of them as a football manager, but on Web3,
Sure.
they're called Ethereum. Um, and I was just, I mean, I'm a very small angel investor, but they were just talking about like if we're on this chain, we might price in ETH. If we're on that chain, we might price in USDC or something. And it was just interesting to see like why things could be priced in ETH itself, because it's of course ETH has become this sort of currency that people are okay in actually using for NFT purchases.
Sure.
Um, we are also seeing, of course, like lots of fiat on ramp solutions and this idea of NFT checkout, which will be a really big way of at least allowing people to own their first NFT, right? So it's honestly going to be a variety of ways that these platforms will be able to enable this sort of pricing. Um, for example, Decentraland is one of our clients. They their marketplace is all driven by mana, right? So the token mana is basically the currency used in their marketplace.
Is Decentraland, I just saw the other day that Decentraland is hosting like a crazy music festival with
Yeah.
some really big names. Presented by Kraken. You got Ozzy Osbourne, Soldier Boy, Dylan Francis, 100 artists, November 10th to 13th, 15 unique stages, and it's in Decentraland.
Oh
So
wow. Cool.
I guess and they're working with Billboard. It's like, so the question is to you, why? I mean, I could think of some cool answers of why, but like, why are people are would people want to go to a music festival in the metaverse?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I'd love to hear your answers for that.
I could think of an answer.
Go
So
on.
I have a friend who we've known each other for like 10 years, and we live in a far distant place, and we never see each other. And when we do, it's like for fleeting moments. But we're
Yeah.
both into this very type of music, and we both
Yeah. Okay.
work every day in crypto. So what if we literally just spend a few hours going from stage to stage, chatting along the way in Decentraland? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. It's kind of cool. It's like a way to like rebuild that relationship. I don't know.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's. I mean, that is definitely one point, and it makes a lot of sense, right? And it's just the fact of we're always going to be more closely connected as society, and this kind of just like propels us to that next level. So it's definitely not it's not a surprise, I would say. And it's also easier. It's just more distributed. Anyone like if I mean, lots of people can't get visas just to enter the US alone. Let's say for whatever reason, maybe a concert, but with this, that they could, in a way, be in that type of environment.
It's getting really bad to like to not be US citizen and want to just visit the US. It's very difficult now. When I was younger, it wasn't like anyone could just come, I feel like. But now I have one of my best friends. He's been with his partner for a few years now, and for one reason or another, she can't come to the US, and it's like I can't see him now. It
Crazy.
sucks. I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on here.
Yeah. Anyways, we're just like scratching the surface of politics that we probably don't want to go into.
Yeah. Um. What do you? What would you like to see Biconomy be in like a future Web3 world? Like if you had to compare yourself to a company of today, are you like a Google, Amazon Web Services? Are you Cisco? Where do you kind of place yourself?
That's a really good question. I actually always say it's kind of like a blend between Stripe and Twilio.
Oh,
Um,
great.
And the reason being is because we kind of do. There's a lot of messaging that is happening, or let's say communication, which is sort of the Twilio side, but there's also a lot of value transfer, by at least a la like Stripe, right? And so I kind of see it's a blend between those two, and it really being that like one point access for developers who always want to have a cleaner, smoother onboarding and transaction experience for
That's
their
what you're right. Twilio. I remember Twilio was such, it doesn't get enough credit, but really fundamentally changed the interaction between SMS and the internet. And like anytime you do two-factor with SMS, by the way, if you're doing two-factor authentication with SMS, don't stop it. People can hack your cell phone
yeah.
number and take all your cryptos and everything and your banking and everything. So don't do it. Use Google Authenticator, the YubiKey, who we've had on the show, the Yubico company, or there's some um, Norton. I think Norton has their own. There's these authenticator apps. Just public service announcement. Don't use, but the ability to like do that, and then for politicians to text us those lovely political messages is because of Twilio. So thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really glad that you mentioned it um, because it's definitely something that people like use without them knowing, right? And it's going to be to the extent that Biconomy is even used without people knowing like what's under the hood, right? And so we're even going to be like I sort of don't want to shill too much, but we're going to be launching Biconomy SDK next month, which is basically a new let's say product evolvement from our side, where we're bringing in all the different things that we've been doing that have currently right now they've been in existing like siloed tech stacks, and we're kind of bringing everything together under just one banner, which is the Biconomy SDK. And this SDK will allow for the gasless transactions we usually do. It will allow end users to pay gas in a different token. So it's like you want to send USDC, you could pay gas in USDC, right? Um, and
That's
of
really
course, the
cool.
cross-chain communication side of things as well. And so, like, and there'll be other modules, but like, um, this is something that we're actually going to be releasing, and we're going to be sort of having a private beta launch with a couple of key folks, which will basically like have this as the main thing that we'll be doing, to be honest, because we realize like having different products, naming them as well, kind of creates brand confusion, and especially if they need to have different ways to integrate, also kind of confuses that developer experience. And so it's also about how can we make the developer experience and integration like super easy, right? And the SDK is definitely a part of that.
I appreciate you. We went into some really good subjects today and learned a lot. Ahmed Al-Balaghi, founder of Biconomy. Really, really excited that you gave me a lot of topics to research after we finished the show today. And I'll hopefully next time I'm in Dubai we get to hang out soon.
For sure. If there's one more topic you'd like to research, and this is a probably an episode of its own, it's account abstraction. It's a bit more technical, but if you just check out the ERC 4337 account abstraction, this is a lot of what our SDK is kind of built on. But it's Vitalik's vision for how Ethereum should have been, and they're currently putting this in place. To some degree at least, right? But you should definitely check it out. I think you'd like it a lot.
What is it? ERC what?
4337. Yeah, you should definitely check out. Right now, it's literally like a bunch of nerds on a Discord channel and Telegram channel and like some specs online, and it was a really big theme in DEF CON. I was in DEF CON last week in Bogota. Um, but like it's gaining a lot of ground and shape, and it's going to be a core backbone of how Ethereum will be, and also maybe lots of
Interesting.
other things as well.
All right, I'm reading a tweet. I have a tweet thread that Vitalik wrote in like 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to read it after we finish
Yeah,
here.
please do go for it. Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
and yeah,
Oh,
I'm sure you'll
awesome.
enjoy it.
This is wonderful. All right, thank you so much.
Cool,
Have a great
for sure.
day.